Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to
Ohm-g, the podcast.
And today we are going to be discussing what we nerd out about. So, what do you nerd out about? Aaron, what do you nerd out about?
Well, snap my suspenders and pop all my glasses, let me tell you. A couple things. So, when we were talking about this episode and like what we nerd out about, quote unquote, it's like basically what is a topic or something, doesn't even have to be woo related, that really sparks a fire within you or you get really excited talking about or thinking about or researching or whatever. And with, right, Alexandra just whispered, so much. So as a Sagittarius, mine can change, but pretty frequently. But my constants have always been books. And then most recently, when like the COVID lockdowns and stuff happened, I really got into vinyl records and like listening to vinyl records and like sitting with the music. And as maybe nerdy as it sounds, you can like hear things on a vinyl record that you don't necessarily hear when you're just like streaming the music on your phone or listening to a CD or whatever. There are just like specific little instrument kind of components or different things with like backup vocals. And so I just get like cold chills whenever I'm just like sitting with my turntable and just like have a record going, and usually a drink. I know, shocker. So for me, it's books, like talking about books or reading books or thinking like, why did an author, use this word choice in this paragraph, or what kind of mood or tone are they setting in this scene and why, or, things like that. If you're into books and literature, there's this podcast called Reading the Room. And it's by Jalen, I can't remember his last name, but he has a YouTube channel. He's really good. And he has on these like really famous authors. And they talk about sort of like their authorial choices with what they're writing about, whatever at the time.
Authorial?
Authorial.
Is that a word? That's a fancy
I don't know,
word.
is it? Hey Siri, what does authorial mean?
Does she even know?
She didn't listen. Okay, anyways. So I don't know, but that's very interesting to me. And then obviously like vinyl records. And I 2 summers ago worked summer school. Ugh. And as part of my like treat to myself for doing that, I bought myself like a nicer, or as my friend Cecilia used to say when she was a drinker, she would call it a mid-shelf. She's like, don't get the little, whatever bottle of tequila, but don't get get a mid-shelf.
Don't get the house.
Don't get the house, mama, right. But don't get, top shelf. So a mid-shelf, but I got a nice turntable as a treat to myself, and it's purple, and I like got to like pick out what platter I got for it and the little like turntable thing. It's very cute, but I just love like going into a record store and just like flipping through. They have like if you're in Greensboro, Hippo Records is really wonderful. They have like if an album comes out on Friday, they'll have the vinyl usually in the store, and they have like a huge like used record selection that's like, half off sometimes. So I just really loved like hunting for records, finding them, collecting them, and then just like at the house being like, I really want to listen to this, and just like flipping through my catalog and putting it on. So
there's something about the physical touch of like touching a book or touching a record.
Right, yes. Yeah. There's something very like romanticized, I think, about both of those. And I've always been described as an old soul, and I don't know that I like that term necessarily, but I've definitely lived like lives and lives and lives. And y'all, I'm tired. Like, why am I still in this earth plane? But as Chandra had said earlier, I hope you don't mind me saying, but we were chatting just before this, and she said, I just want to come back as a carb. And something really about that resonated with me, because if I have to come back on the earth plane again, y'all make me a piece of fucking rigatoni. You know what I mean? Like, just call it a day.
And put some cheese on it.
Put some cheese on it. Little sauce.
But just make me a shape that'll hold the sauce well, and I'll be happy.
Right. You can make me the little dinosaur pasta. I'm fine with that. But so that's what I really nerd out about, is books and literature and writing and music and vinyl records in particular. Yeah. What about you, Alexandra? What do you nerd out about? What do you get? what really just chaps your khakis and fires your loins?
Girl, pick one.
Yeah, because Chandler's over here giving me the sad eye, knowing I have many interests. Well, I will give just a really brief run through and kind of pick on one. So I've been really into studying body language recently. So huge shout out to the Behavioral Arts channel on YouTube, which I've been listening and devouring that content. I love most things that comes to do with linguistics, actually, and looking at accents and different, markers of that. So I'll watch things on YouTube about that. I love learning. I love personality types, learning how people fit together and communicate in different personality communication styles. I'm obsessed with card decks. I have quite a collection now. And one of my favorite things about them is reading the guidebooks and the knowledge I get from them, covering things from astrology to spirit animals to, traditional tarot. So I read and consume a lot of content, written, video, audio content about spiritual stuff, from cards to sound healing to herbal medicine is something I want to get into. So I have a lot of varied interests that go down the rabbit hole, and some also very non-woo things like business topics. I love learning about, which kind of relates into body language and behavior, persuasion. And what I love to take about all this, and so sometimes I don't see what people do with their hobbies, is and I've been complimented on it quite a few times, is integrating it. Taking something that seems so vastly different from something I'm passionate about and saying, how do I incorporate this thing that worked? And I love looking at the world like that. I see the world as a big puzzle and going, I'm going to figure out this piece. And so I go down many rabbit holes, and then I find the perfect way they fit together for me.
That's awesome.
So
that's really cool.
That's my rabbit hole.
So can you see it in your mind? Take that little bit of information, you can almost see in your mind's eye how it fits into your life.
Mm-hmm. And then there's something like, oh, that piece is good. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start incorporating. Or if it's something, because I was watching a body behavioral arts video this morning, and it was just like, oh, he said something about Camille Debra's study on shrugs and people shrugging, the 3 different types of shrugs. You shrug with your hands, you shrug with your shoulders, you shrug with your mouth, you shrug with your eyes, and the different types of things. And they can mean universally about 3 different things. So I'm like, okay, when I watch people, if I listen to them talk, I'm like, oh, I'm going to pay attention. And, he talks a lot about clusters of deception. So something may indicate somebody's being deceiving you or deceiving themselves. So then I start to look at people, and then I'm like, psychologically, oh, well, how can you use influence tactics or persuasion tactics to get people into something? So I love how my mind kind of just works in ways that I'm like, oh, this connects. And people are like, no, they don't. And I'm like, no, they do.
Trust me on this one.
So and it's interesting because your card decks and the tarot and reading that, it's all kind of goes together. In my mind, it goes together.
Yeah. So I've had people like, why would you take time to study influence and body language? I'm like, because it works with card reading, and they're like, what? And I'm like, it does, trust me.
It's also so cool. It's just just observing socially. I feel like, even conversations or relationships you're not even involved in, just watching people.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've found more enjoyment in life is people watching. I think I used to it really creeped me out as a kid. I was like, don't watch people. Like my godmother would say, oh, let's go people watch someone. I was like, what do you know? I don't want to be watched. They don't want to be watched. And I'm like, I want to figure out your life story and, learn.
This is not a plug for Netflix's newest series, The Watcher, by the way, but it's pretty good. Just finished it last night.
Yeah.
What about you, Brenda Sue?
I can definitely see how body language and intuition, the connection there, just because, just in thinking about it, if, like we were talking about earlier, Brenda, where you got something from spirit as you were trying to do a reading and the person didn't connect to it or said they didn't connect to it, but it really came out that it was spot on. But if you had that, a lot of times people will have a visceral reaction to something.
Yes.
And have a body language tick, for lack of a better word, cue is a great word, that they're not aware of, but that will lead in to, you can kind of, not by their words, but by their facial expression or how they move in their seat or whatever, figure out how what you said affected them, even on a subconscious level.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Looking at how people are sitting and just the things around them, will it take them more time to pack up in, scooch? couldn't defeat the level of comfortability with something, so it's actually it's a huge thing. And reading the room around you and people and interactions, which would go back into the personalities and, anyways. All right, I'm going to get off because I will nerd out all day long, guys, and you'll be here for 5 hours going, why is Alexandra still talking?
Well, I think it kind of ties in together because you being an empath and getting the feelings and then also being interested in what is actually physically happening in front of you, then you can match up, your empath side with the reality of what you're seeing in front of yourself. And so it makes sense.
Totally. It's that validation that we were talking about earlier, like that. You're getting the same thing from two different inputs. So
Yeah.
So on this note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I guess Chandra and I will have to see what we actually nerd out on. Well, we'll see. See you soon.
Hi, this is Chandra. Brenda and I would like to invite you as part of our podcast community to join us on either Facebook or Instagram Live each Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern U.S. time, where we give free oracle readings for fans of the show. Just follow us on our Ohm-g Podcast Facebook or Instagram page. You can post or DM us your questions there each week with the hashtag woo-woo-wisdom, and then tune in at 11 a.m. each Friday on our page to watch your free reading. If you can't join us live, don't worry. You can always catch it on the replay. This is just our way of saying thank you for being part of our woo-woo family. Hope to see you this Friday.
All right. Welcome back, guys. It's Brenda Sue bringing us back in. And I have been thinking about this, like racking my brain. What do I nerd out about? I nerd out about a lot of things, I guess, depending on the day. But I think one thing that has been a constant for me for a long time has been like being in nature and hiking, because that's where I feel the most connected. As I have said on the podcast before, that's where I feel like most connected with spirit, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, and with myself as well. So I've had some crazy experiences in the woods with spiritual beings or spirits, and also feeling the energy of the land. And, sometimes you don't get validation for those things because Ro and I like to go walking at our place over here and close to the house. And there's so much spiritual activity over there. But how can you validate that? You can't really validate, I see a Native American standing over there. Well, who's going to say that it is or isn't? Right. So that also comes in with trusting your intuition. But we have felt some crazy things over there with all kinds of different spirits. We had our Scots, we had our Indians, we had our, what's half man, half goat thing? Centaurs.
Half goat might be satyrs.
Well, one of them.
Horses I couldn't. Half goat. Half horses, half human are centaurs.
Okay, so satyrs or satyrs, however it is you want to pronounce it.
We're Siri.
Yeah. So that is kind of a time that I can be in my body and also be in spirit at the same time, which is kind of fun for me personally.
And it's also just so good for your health to be outside and in nature, which most people don't get nowadays.
Yeah, it's very common for my nervous system.
Right.
Just to like recenter and reground. And I, it just, as a Gemini, I don't know, my interests change all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's one thing that I'm nerding out about, whether it's my new card deck from Messenger of Spirit Oracle, that is like my favorite new thing.
They're beautiful cards. They are so pretty.
Really, really pretty cards. Or, if it's learning how to cook something or whatever, there's always something new that's coming along that, I nerd out about. But I'm not like a Trekkie or anything nerdy, super nerdy like that.
Yeah.
Chandra, Trekkie. So Chandra, do you nerd out?
Well, I am a Trekkie, but
oh, she nerds out over Dave Matthews Band.
I do nerd out over Dave Matthews Band. That's
she's got her ball, she's got her chain.
Don't get me started.
Oh, now it smells like dog fart. Cool.
Brenda and I were here trying to hide it, and Aaron's like, "All right, let's call it out."
Poor Cooper.
I know.
But yeah, probably the longest lasting thing that I nerd out about is printing. When I graduated college and got my first job was in a corrugated plant. And I was in customer service, so we took the orders from the customer and translated that into what the plant actually had to produce. So my first customer was home light. So string trimmers, yard equipment, blowers, generators. So it was these huge cardboard boxes, but they had to have images of the act. So when you think about a cardboard box, you think about, the Amazon box. It's it's got 2 colors on it. It's just words. It's but these had like actual images of the equipment that had to look like what the equipment actually looked like and what it did. There was like people using a blower, and so it was like real life images. Yeah. So it was what we called fancy packaging. It's fancy.
Like marketing on the box.
Right. And so, I had to quickly learn a lot about printing presses and technology and inks and how they were applied to different types of substrates and that type of thing. So I always joke that ink got in my blood. So, my entire time in corporate America, I spent in printing of some form or fashion. So, and I still kind of I still have a lot of friends who either work in or own printing companies. And, sometimes I'll go to see people and it's like you walk in, you smell the ink from the print room, and it's like
getting a Sharpie pen high.
Yeah. So I can nerd out about, like offset printing and
that's
that
cool.
stuff. So
I think
it was a first love kind of thing. Like I didn't expect to enjoy that as much as I did. But I also kind of go through these phases where like DIY projects, but it's still kind of that like it's color, it's paint, it's creative, it's all kind of like ties back into that. I think it comes from the same place, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There's elements of printing are there in the other projects. For sure. Whenever I go into the library, or when I go to print copies of stuff, there's something about just holding that warm paper and smelling the ink and the laminator. I don't know what it is. I literally could have a candle of just lamination smell, which is fucking psycho.
I'm plastic.
Yeah, plastic.
But I'm a child of the 80s, so I remember the mimeograph machines.
Yes.
The teachers would come in with those. They were printed in blue. It was almost like a carbon copy kind of thing, but the mimeograph, whatever solvent that they used, it was
yeah. There's something I don't know. It's weird.
But again, printing. It's like
They should make a candle out of it just for you guys.
Yeah, I know. Me and Chandra will be your biggest buyers.
No doubt.
Yeah.
People make candles out of weirder smells, so why not, right?
For sure. And I think we were having a discussion earlier about what we nerd out about can be sort of based on our astrological signs. With Chandra and Brenda being Geminis, me being Sagittarius, Alexandra, January
Pisces, Sun, Scorpio, Rising, Virgo.
Thank you. Talk about the big 3 again. So it can differ based on your big 3.
Virgo is the house of health, the realm of health, organization, and I love working out, so I will consume YouTube content about what is the best way to work your glutes.
Right.
Just all go down strange rabbit holes.
Right.
But Sages are very much about learning and higher learning. So I really vibe with Sages a lot. Some of my close friends.
Yeah. We're good people sometimes. But also your attention, right? And whether or not your attention lends itself to one specific thing for a longer period of time. So that's why I kind of mentioned with mine, books and records have always been there, since I was a kid. I've always been a very voracious reader, but records have been a constant for the past, I'd say 3 or so years. And I see it continuing. But I guess I'm interested in with you guys, what, how frequently would you say your interests change on things you nerd out about? Or
that's what we were talking about earlier. Brenda and I really struggled with this because one, we're both Gemini. So it's at what point? It's
right.
Because
Tuesday at 2:00 is different from Friday at 3.
Yeah. Just it's not that it's necessarily a fleeting interest. It's just that it's got to kind of resonate with what's going on in my life at this point.
But it's timely.
If it's not applicable right now, I'm probably not going to, give it that much attention.
I think the thing about myself personally, and I think you could probably relate to this too, Chandra, as a fellow Gemini, we like to know a little bit about a lot of different things. And for me, I don't deep dive into knowing the very intricate details of really anything or being an expert on anything.
Right.
but I know a little bit about a lot of things, which lends well to conversations or connecting with people because, just enough to be dangerous.
Right.
But not enough to be an expert.
Right.
Not being enough to be deadly.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I think that gets labeled as you're flaky or you're this or you're that. But honestly, we just don't need to go deep into anything. We can, surface, understand things and be okay with that. I mean, I can.
No, I totally resonate with that.
And as a non-Gemini, I find it inspirational because my husband Christian is a Gemini, and it's very similar to what you just described. Like one week he'll be fascinated with this specific topic, and then like the next week it's like it never happened, and it's totally something different.
Right, but he's gleaned enough about it in that 1 week.
Yeah,
that I'm good.
Yes,
I understand it.
Yes,
even if it's not 30,000 feet. Okay, 18,000 feet. Okay, I understand it. Let's move on.
Right, and I almost get like a contact knowledge because of his research and what he's saying. Where I'm like, oh, I never knew that. Whatever. But it's like. And then sometimes I'll feel dumb because I'm like, well, I feel like I'm okay with knowing very, very little about a lot of things, or like something very specific about one or two things. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say a lot of my nerd out moments they may seem unrelated to a lot of people on the outside, but they almost build on top of each other. So it's like, okay, and I might pick up something for a little bit, and they'll put it down, but then about 3 months later, I'll go like, okay, now I'm back into the deep hole of this one thing for a little bit. So, yeah, like biting off just enough to chew and digest for a little bit before you're like, okay, I'm going back for seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we've all kind of talked about what we nerd out about, kind of outside of the woo. Okay, but within the woo, what would be the one thing that you would like?
That is so hard.
I know.
Because I feel like I kind of treat it the same way. I glean knowledge from lots of different areas of spirituality, and I apply whatever works for me within my own understanding. And I've never really, I guess with mediumship I've deep dived, but that's like, you'll never know all of any of it.
Sure.
So it's kind of like taking bits of all of it.
Yeah, but is there the one part that just like kind of like really lights you up? This is going to sound like a cop-out. Mine is very broad-based, but mine is energetic healing. And whether that is Reiki or whether that is like EFT or whether that is, affirmations or just like energy movement through the body, like we were talking about earlier, like reflexology or acupuncture meridians. To me, it's different. It's just different applications of the same thing. But that's the thing that I find the most interesting, like astrology. Like that's Camille's thing, and she gets it like nobody else.
Yes.
Like to me, it is Greek.
Yes.
Like I can study and study and study it.
It's so interesting, but it's not my language.
Right. Exactly. Like I can read and read and read.
Yeah.
But then something comes up and you'll say something like, well, Sagittarius, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, because I don't retain it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So that's why I can see how there are certain topics that we resonate more with than others. I'm interested in crystals and I think rocks are really pretty, but as for, like I wear this certain green and pink stone all the time, but I always have to ask Rosalie what the name of it is because I cannot retain.
Right. You're just like called to it for whatever reason.
Right. But like the details of like learning that thing, I may try, but it just doesn't stick like
it does with Rosalie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or like it might stick with me with some other topic. That's why I'm kind of asking that question because I'd be interested to know what your woo love language is.
I love that question. I think, not to like piggyback on what you're saying, but I feel like maybe energetic healing too is mine. Like, and I like hesitate to even call it that because it's like, what and who am I healing? But there's just this like, when I've practiced it before on you guys or like friends and things like that, just like, I just call it tuning in. But when you're like feeling that person's energy and trying to get messages for them, there's something so like connected to source that I feel in that moment that is just like transformative. The only other time that I truly feel like that is when I'm writing something, and I'm just like in the zone and it's just like, I don't even know consciously what's coming out. And so getting like words or images or colors or senses or smells or whatever, just makes me feel very grounded in my body. And so I think like, I guess it's energetic healing, but part of me wants to call it just like connecting with others energetically, if that makes sense. Because I don't know that I'm like healing necessarily, but it's like so.
It's energy movement.
Yes, thank you. Energy movement while connecting with others. That's my woo nerd thing.
What's your
as I
woo
push my
nerd?
glasses up.
Alexandra?
So many of it.
Yeah.
And this is where it's like, oh my God, I want to learn it all and I want to use it all and I want to incorporate it all.
Yeah.
I guess kind of an overarching cop-out again would be the philosophy behind a lot of things.
Spirituality in general, or?
Yeah, just the way the world works, the way the universe works, all possibilities, and the philosophy behind divination systems, because I think that's very fascinating, because there's some people like, no, I'm right, this is the only way, this is the only way, and I'm like, well...
Right.
So I love looking into that stuff. I mean, I hugely nerd out on learning things, so learning about more the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And consuming all that I can, because the more I know about things or learn about things or show interest, it seems to come up in my life. And I'm like, I feel prepared to handle things that happen in everyday life. So,
that's a good point.
And the more that you learn, the more that you know that you don't know, which also piques the curiosity of what is next and what else is
never
there.
Get discouraged by it. I mean, there's a few times where I'm like, I just want to be great at this and expert at this one thing right now. And my mom's like, you've been looking at this for 3 hours. You're fine.
Shout out Candace. We love your grounding mechanisms.
She had, but yeah, so I love learning things and just I nerd out on learning things and going, oh my God, I don't know about this. Let me learn more. Let me go find questions. Okay, this may not be satisfactorily answered for 5 years, but that's fine, you know? So I like that part.
Lifelong learning.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does not have to be in an institution or outside of it, you know, an institution either.
Yeah.
You know, it can be in or without her.
And I'm jealous of that because as an ADHD Gemini, if I tried and I'm not good at it,
Bitch, we've written it off, you know?
Yeah.
Next.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like there's like a gift too that you both have, not only as Geminis, but just with like tuning in to spirit and being able to, like with the cards, like what you guys do on Woo Woo Wisdom, which if you haven't checked it out on Fridays, please do. Yeah, I just feel like there's like it's like a talent that, not even a talent, it's a gift, you know, that I feel like can't necessarily be like tapped into unless you have it. And so I feel like that goes back to our earlier conversation about like trusting your intuition. And like when I have, like with me, if I like hover my hands against or above someone, I'm getting messages or images or colors or whatever, you know, but I can't do that yet, at least with cards. And I feel like you guys can in a very, I don't know, cool and interesting way, all three of you, because you're like really amazing with tarot, you know, like.
Well, and to me, it's just like practice.
Yeah.
It's just like, because you're used to energy and information coming in to you in one way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the same thing. It's just coming into you in a different format.
Mm.
So it's like, if you think of the cards in your hands as your hands hovering over a person, it's doing the same thing. It's just practicing it with a different
medium
format and different medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like too, whenever we work together on Fridays, like the group energy of the two of us plays off of each other in creating the story that's coming out. And also part of that is, which has also been a passion of mine with my spiritual work in general, is connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the things I nerd out about, is connecting spiritually with other people, because you feel at such a different level. It's such a heart-centered, connected level. And there's nothing more beautiful than connecting with somebody in their heart space.
Amen.
And helping them.
I think that's what this podcast was birthed from, was like us connecting with each other and wanting to extend that connection to our listeners. So
on that, we'd love to hear what you guys nerd out about it. You know, share a little bit. Send us down the rabbit holes. And we'd love to connect with you guys that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so peace out, y'all.
Peace out.
Right, see you on the next, or hear you on the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.